topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. Today, we're talking about the magical body system that no one knows about. And our guest will tell us more about that. But it is around the immune system and lymphatic system. That's what we're really talking about, is the lymphatic system here. But it's so closely related to our immune system and what really brings us that body's ability to let go and cleanse and leaving us feeling restored and strong. Really, it's our a big thing for our first line of defense. And we've been talking so much about illness and protecting our immune system in the recent year and a half with the pandemic, and how we're looking at how can we improve our natural body's defenses and strengthen our body to be able to fight off and stand up to certain pestilence that comes into life. And from traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, because that's where my majority of my training comes from, and understanding how disease and illness enters our body or comes from within and to the outside. There's many factors, right, that play into total health. But the lymphatic system, we see it. Yeah, we'll talk more about this once I bring my guest on, but traditional Chinese medicine doesn't really include the lymphatic system, but there's a whole other system that regulates it and regulates your whole body. It's like its irrigation system. That's how I always like to refer to it as. So this is such an awesome topic. We could probably talk there's so much to really share about this, and I think it's a really interesting time to be talking about it. So our guest today is Robin Devine, and she's an amazing woman, owner of the Lymph Balance Center in Calgary, Alberta, and an amazing massage therapist, lymphedema therapist, and an incredible teacher. She was actually one of my teachers when I went to massage therapy school back in 2005. And so let's not delay it anymore. Let's bring on Robin Devine. Hello.
Hello, Miss Nicole.
Hi.
I can't believe you just went back to 2005. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Oh, really?
I know.
Yeah.
So, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to see you.
It is really good to see you too. And you're in your amazing clinic.
I
the
am.
Lymph Balance Center.
I'm at the clinic today. I'm in between seeing clients because there's just, it's awesome. It's a great day today. So.
Yeah, you run a pretty busy schedule, right? Because you do some pretty specialized work.
I do. Like when we start talking more about how the lymphatic system, but it's one of those modalities. It's one of those, not a lot of people do what we do. And so, creating the center 100% came out of just the fact that there was such a niche that was not being filled. And so, I'm very proud that we have, one of the only private lymphatic centers in Western Canada, in Alberta, in Calgary for sure. And I love the people that we get to see and help, because again, you know, they'd be waiting a really, really long time to get into some of the more hospital settings when it comes to lymphatic stuff. And, you know, just like you said, it's, you know, it's a system that is probably not recognized enough or taught enough. And so it kind of gets overlooked, which is unfortunate because it does so many things. So yeah, I'm always really grateful to share as much as I can with anybody, because it's really underappreciated. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really like a body armor. That's how I see it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some lymph things? Like what is, you know,
The
lymphatic
basics.
drainage? What is
Yeah.
lymphedema? What would bring someone to the hospital with that?
Yeah. So the thing is that, you know, it's overlooked in Western medicine and Eastern medicine in basics. You know, it's unfortunate because a lot of the times, you know, I'm sitting with clients who have seen specialists upon specialists who don't realize that it's a lymphatic issue. And so, you know, the lymphatic system will send warnings and will try and talk to you in so many different ways. And we're not trained to listen for it. We're not aware that, oh crap, that's my immune system telling me, you know, that something's going on. So the lymphatic system, you know, a lot of times it gets coupled in with your cardiovascular system because it's all about circulation. And unfortunately, it gets overlooked because it's not as exciting, I think, for a lot of people as the cardiovascular system. It's not, you know, it's not as sexy, I guess, but I love it. I think it's incredible. So its job is to like filter and bring all those waste products that are everywhere in all your tissues, and to clean it, and to, you know, attack foreign invaders, and to balance out your hormones, and to circulate nutrition and hormones and sugars and everything, and keep a nice body balance. And by doing that, strengthens your immune system. And so, you know, the most common thing that people recognize when it's the lymphatic system is swelling. It's the number one. It's, you know, swollen ankles. It's their face is swollen and they can't get it to go down. And that's normally where people end up at the doctors. And they're like, you know, my face has been swollen for 3 weeks and we don't know why. I'm not having an allergic reaction. I don't know what's going on. Or, you know, why is my one leg all like twice the size of the other one with fluid? And the doctors a lot of times don't know. And there's so many reasons why the lymphatic system can be upset or put off balance or restricted in its movement, that when it does, it's misunderstood. And so there's a lot of things that we do between manual therapy and exercise and looking at the root cause of why it's happening like that. You know, that's what kind of makes us unique at the clinic. So
I'm really curious to know more about what makes it stuck.
Yeah. So like I said, it's anywhere you have blood, you have lymph. And so that's the one thing that gets misunderstood. Everybody thinks, oh, it's just got to be my lymph nodes. But anywhere you have blood, you have to have the lymphatics, because wherever there's blood, there's, you know, oxygen and nutrients and all those things being given to your cells. But at the same time, your cells are giving away their waste products and saying, please take this away. And for the longest time, we were always under the impression that it was actually the circulatory system, the veins, that were carrying away all that material. And that's how I was taught in school. I was like, oh, you know, waste products get picked up by the veins and it gets carried back to the heart and life goes on. And what actually, it's actually a fairly new discovery. It was sort of back in like 2009, 2010, where they actually found by doing research that 90 to 98%, some books even say 99% now, of all the waste products in your tissues gets picked up by your lymphatics. And so,
and it's pretty superficial, right? Like,
yeah.
So like for, you know, just a bit of description, the lymphatic system is so close to your skin, the surface, you know, and then the skin being an excretory system too.
Yeah.
Right.
So like 70% of all your lymph is right under the skin. And so that's why, as a lymphatic therapist, you know, we never call it lymph massage because it doesn't feel anything like massage. But what we do is we're helping support that superficial movement which is going to affect 70% of all your lymph, right? So yeah, we have lymph that's deeper, but in comparison to your blood, where, you know, the majority of your blood runs deep, your lymph is quite superficial in that way. And so, you know, it has a lot of water component to it. 96% of your lymph is made up of water. And then the rest of it is, you know, waste products. And it could be foreign cells, it could be damaged cells, it could be cancer cells, it could be a virus, it could be bacteria, it could be cellular waste, hormones, so many things, proteins, plasma proteins that get leaked into your tissues, get picked up by the lymphatics. And so we take that, all that fluid that, you know, is considered to be waste in that way, and our body says, look, I don't want to just throw it out. Can we recycle in some way? And so if it's 96% water, yeah, let's save that, because that's really important to our body function. And so it takes it to lymph nodes, and lymph nodes I treat and explain to clients, it's kind of like a little water treatment plant, and it filters and it clears, and there's your immune cells are living in your lymph nodes, and they're looking for foreign pathogens, bad guys. They're looking for viruses and parasites and all those things, and they attack them, which is great. And we want that lymph to go through as many lymph nodes as possible. So that's why lymph nodes are found in clusters. You know, we all understand about the lymph nodes underneath our neck, because when we are sick and we have a cold, you know, they go and check underneath our neck and all that kind of stuff. But you have anywhere between 800 to 1,000 lymph nodes throughout your entire body. And half of them are in your deep abdomen, in your gut. So
Right.
we
Helping
want,
support like the colon, you know,
Yeah.
like the small intestine. And,
yeah. And all the stuff you're absorbing from the food that you eat, right? So we want to make sure there's no weird, yucky stuff on the food you eat and take it into your system. So we want to clean this and put it through our lymph as much as we can in our lymph nodes. And eventually that fluid does get dumped back into your bloodstream right at the base of your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is this amazing...
Out the left thoracic duct.
Well, yeah, it can. Yeah, it depends on where it's coming from, but either like the thoracic duct, yeah, absolutely. And so, and then it gets put back in your bloodstream. And your blood does what it can with it. It'll take it to the surface, and you might excrete some of the waste products via sweat or oil on your skin. It might go to the lungs, and you excrete it out through, you know, exhalation. Most of it hopefully will go to your kidneys, and you'll filter it out and just make a lot of awesome urine. And that's one of the major ways, you know, after doing lymphatic treatment, everybody's always surprised that they're peeing more and that it's changed color or smell or whatever. And it's because you're getting rid of waste products, and it's amazing. So, yeah.
So lymphatic drainage is a technique that you use to help facilitate the drainage.
Yeah.
Proper drainage, like unstuck the...
Yeah, to basically look
stagnation,
and say,
you know?
Yeah, and we're looking for areas where it's not moving really well. So, you know, with clients, we talk a lot about, you know, it could be something as extreme as a surgical incision, right? So if you think of the lymphatics as all these little streams that are going through a park, and, you know, a beaver goes and takes up residence and puts down a whole bunch of sticks and makes a dam, what's going to happen? It's going to back flood, right? Your lymph has the same problem. It's you know, can get blocked by surgical incisions, by, you know, scars, by muscle tension, by really tight restrictive clothing. All those things can actually really stop your lymph from moving. And so, you know, what we do as therapists is I'm going to go and look for beaver dams. I'm looking for where's their blockage that's preventing that fluid from leaving that area. You know, surgical scars are huge, and it might be a surgical scar that's like 20 years old, and it hasn't caused a problem until today, because today was just a day you made more lymph, and it just got stuck, and it started to not be able to drain as well as it did yesterday.
Well, that's really interesting. Scars. What more could you talk about with that? Because I know. Like that's an area of focus that I love, because there, you know, anytime you cut the body, there's all these layers of tissue that then have to heal and repair, and then they form scar tissue, which, you know, always forms quite amazingly in crisscross pattern, like mishmash.
Yeah.
And then obstructed flow, and then 20 years later, it's like, yeah, that was 20 years ago. But okay, you've had 20 years of compensation for
Yeah.
that circulation.
And that's the thing is like, you don't consider it. You're like, oh no, I've had this for, I had a C-section 20 years ago. Or no, I had reconstructive knee surgery 12 years ago, but why are my legs swelling today? And so, it's one of those things. It's the lymphatic system. It works so hard at moving so much fluid, and it does its job to the best of its ability every single day. Sometimes we just tip the scales. It's like, that old adage of like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Up until that point, it was doing its job despite having that blockage in the way. And then something happened. It was really, really hot out. Your body made more lymph. You tweaked your ankle and you made more lymph. And your body goes, I can't get past that. It's too much fluid to get past that restriction. And so a lot of the times we work with doing myofascial work and scar release to facilitate proper lymph movement and help them work together. And when fluid's been sort of stuck there for a long time, we call that chronic edema. That is where the fluid's been there past the initial trauma and, the normal time it would take for the body to recover that fluid. And it's been there, having fluid stuck in a tissue area for, longer than 2 weeks. That's pretty chronic. It's your body should have recovered that. So absolutely scar tissue. And even, take it away from just being regular scar tissue, like think of sprains and strains, right? You and I experience it all the time with clients that they end up pulling a muscle and their body heals it. You might not see it superficially on the skin, but you can feel it down at the muscular level, and that will stop lymphatic fluid from moving. And it might not be significant like, lymphedema, which is a huge topic, but it's enough to cause some swelling to stay in that area. And everybody, I think, undervalues when you have excess fluid, what that does. It's heavy and it prevents joints from moving, and tissue is only designed to stretch so far. And if you push it to its limits with fluid, that can be really painful. And so it's, people are always surprised. They're like, why does this hurt so much? I'm like, because you're not supposed to swell there. Your body's not designed to do that. So yeah, it's going to be unhappy. And it's going to be telling you about it.
So what is lymph? Please remind me. I'm like trying to have this like visual of it, but I'm like, did I like, I just totally forget that, like what it looks like. We know what blood looks like.
I know.
Right.
And that's the thing, because you can visibly see it. It has a color, right? Blood has a color. And that's why it's been known about for so long. Even going back to the times of like Aristotle and Hippocrates, they knew about this system. They just didn't know what it was. They knew that there was this system that had this clear kind of, sometimes it's straw colored or light yellow color, milky color. But, happy, healthy lymph, if there's not anything else going on, is generally quite clear. Because again, it's 96% water. So, and it's very visibly hard to see if you go to an anatomy lab, unless you're looking at live tissue or what we consider to be a fresh cadaver, which is they've passed away in the last 24 hours. It is very hard to see the lymphatics because they collapse. Like lymphatic vessels are exceptionally small and they have clear fluid running through them. So it stands to reason that we've been missing it, to give it its value. A lot of times when we see lymphatic vessels and lymphatic fluid in the abdomen, because there's fat that's being absorbed through the digestive system, the lymphatic system will look kind of milky. And that's the fat that it's transporting. And so, unlike textbooks that color it bright green, that was actually because when they did a cadaver dissection on a dog that had been poisoned way back, the lymph was green. And so now every textbook, so I was so disappointed when I went to my first anatomy lab and I'm like, where's the lymph? And they're like, you can't see it. I'm like, but it's green. And they're like, no, it's not. It's not green. It's like, it was super disappointing.
I was kind of envision it as yellow, and you think like all the fats in the blood that it's like absorbing, so it would take on this yellowish kind of oily tinge,
It has a milky look, like it's more of like a creamy kind of color. But you get it again. It's mostly.
Have you seen it at the Body Worlds? Did you ever go to that exhibit?
I have, but I've never. You know what? I went to 4 different Body Worlds, and I never saw a really good representation of the lymphatic system. Did you see one? Was there a good one for the lymph?
I don't know. I think I believe I did see, but I can't really remember
They always
right
did
now.
the beautiful ones with blood vessels, because blood vessels are amazing, and the intricacy. The lymph,
I think that they did
there.
have one.
I want to go research it now. I think I have a couple.
I know, me too. So
I have the collector books.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Of course you do.
Of course I do. So
sitting beside Netter.
It's in my bookcase. It's always there. But like it's undervalued in the sense too, is like, your circulatory system pumps like 8,400 liters of blood per day going through your heart. The lymphatic system pumps anywhere between like 1.5 to 4 liters through your thoracic duct. So volume wise, it's unimpressive. I still look at that. I'm like, that's a jug of milk in my fridge.
Totally. Yeah.
Like that's a lot of fluid. Yeah. And technically, if I had a lot of fluid and I got, we're going into Stampede week here in Calgary. If you were out and you were drinking and you sprained your ankle and then you got a sunburn, all these things cause more lymph production, which, I'm going to see this in the next week. This is what walks in the door. And so your body could move like up to 10 times your daily amount. You could move up to 30 liters of lymph per day with a fully functional system. So
it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's impressive what our bodies do on a regular basis, unconsciously. Like we're not even aware of it, right?
Yeah. And it does it just as part of its way to keep balance. So, I can understand why people might not think I don't know. I think it's amazingly exciting, which is obviously where, why I teach lymphatics and teach lymph drainage, is because it's so amazing. And, it's undervalued. They're like, oh no, you just, elevate your legs. And that helps.
Ice and elevate legs.
How
do you feel about ice? What do you feel about ice? I mean, it's different. It's different with something that's like chronic edema or, but there's like acute swelling, like obviously the lymphatic system is working overtime. Yeah. Well, or just, does it act as a cushion maybe too, to protect tissues? Like if an acute injury?
I think the initial swelling is so important. Yeah. I don't like to try and remove it. Even if you like applied ice and everything, you're never going to remove all the inflammation. The body needs to have that inflammation because, it needs to send in so many important things. It needs to send in, mediators of inflammation. It needs to send in chemicals. It needs to send in white blood cells. Like there's so many things that the swelling is good for. Now, obviously excessive swelling is not ideal. But that initial inflammation is important. So, as a lymph therapist, I don't actually do any work on an acute injury. It needs to have that. Once we get into subacute, absolutely, I'm there. Mm-hmm. And, but initial, you kind of need that reaction to happen. And you need those tissues to have that swelling to do its healing process. So I don't know, it's a huge thing in manual therapy about if you're pro or anti-ice, but I'm the middle ground. I'm like, if you need it for pain relief, use it for pain relief. But if, you're never going to remove all the swelling anyways. It's going to keep coming back until the tissue heals.
Well, and from Chinese medicine perspective, like the idea of ice, it stops circulation. It stops flow. Yeah. It stops the swelling from happening, right? So then it only really delays healing a bit, right? Because then the body's going to have to now warm itself up, use energy to warm itself up, and then start healing versus just healing
just allowing it to do its thing.
But yeah, for pain, I mean, that's, there's
I
obviously
get it.
Yeah.
I have young kids. There's a lot of times where I'm like, you just smacked your head, put some ice on that. Let's go. Because, it's going to make the rest of the day more tolerable, and they're going to decrease in pain, and they're going to be able to tolerate the healing process. But yeah, I think sometimes it gets used excessively. And so, I don't feel like that does anything positive for rebuilding, creating proper scar tissue, all that kind of stuff. Right. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really where the work shines is in more of like a chronic, the subacute chronic swelling.
Yeah. So what we end up doing is, for if there's been swelling that's been there for a long time, or congestion, someone's feeling it. A lot of times, clients will sort of bring themselves in. When it comes to limbs, it has to be pretty extreme swelling, because most of the time they just think it's heat related or it's not a big deal. But even a minor amount of swelling in the head feels horrific. Like, we all know what it feels like to have that extra congestion in our sinuses, right?
Right. Yeah.
But when somebody's neck is all swollen, or their eyelids are swollen, they can't open their eyelids, that kind of stuff, that's where we sort of come in. And so pre and post surgical, we do so much work with that, because we really help clear the surgical field before surgery, which is going to promote better healing. It's going to promote better scarring. You're going to have minimal scarring. And then post, we're also helping prevent, just by keeping the immune system boosted and by circulating a whole bunch of beautiful cells, we're going to prevent postoperative infections, or we're going to minimize them at least. And we find postoperative swelling is down. So for that reason, we actually see so much cosmetic surgery clients, which I was never expecting. I was like, nope, I'm going to be working with knees and shoulders, and, but it makes sense. You're dropping, I did not realize how much serious coin to do cosmetic surgery. And you don't want to swell after that. You want to look your best because you just paid for it. So, we have a lot of plastic surgeons that refer to us to keep the swelling down so the healing is better. And that kind of blew my mind. So,
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, but so, yeah. I mean, it makes such a difference, because especially like something cosmetic is what you're presenting to the world, and you want to have that
if you're gonna,
supportive,
if you're going to go through it, you might as well get it like optimal, right? So unfortunately, we see a lot of people flying back from, countries where plastic surgery is a little bit cheaper. And so then we get like, severe scarring, and then flying doesn't help swelling at all, right? Flying makes things worse. And so then we're in, intensive work for about 1.5 to 3 weeks, just trying to get the swelling under control. So
how often would someone come to see you? A couple times a week, 3 times a week?
That depends on the amount of swelling. And how fast you're wanting results. If you're really good at doing your home care and you listen, then it doesn't, you don't have to see me as often, but to get some good results.
What is some home care? What are some takeaways, like DIYs?
Yeah. So definitely with limbs, it's elevation, because like I said, all your lymph in your body is trying to get to the base of your neck. So everything below your shoulders is working against gravity. So if you have swelling in your hands, keeping them above your head, huge. If you have swelling in your ankles, elevate your ankles, right? So when you are sitting, try and elevate them above your heart, because that's going to just let gravity do its thing. If you're flexible enough to put your feet up the side of the wall and have your feet straight up sort of idea, massive. One of the best things you can do for circulation in the legs is swimming and being in water. If you can be in water that's chest deep, you actually have more pressure from the surrounding water around your feet. There's more pressure than I can put you in a compression garment. It's amazing. Better than me putting you in just buy a pool and stand in it all day. No. So if you can do like deep water exercise.
This is my bubble pool now. I'm just walking around everywhere.
Well, but have you seen those machines? These machines kill me, but I think they're awesome. It's like a treadmill underwater. Have you seen those?
Oh, okay.
You're going to research it now, and I'm sure my phone's going to start showing me a whole bunch of ads for them. But anyways, it's like a standing up bathtub, and it's got a treadmill in it, and it's for resistance training.
Okay.
But
cool.
it's perfect for lymph issues in the legs. And part of me is waiting to have enough money. I need a generous donor, if you know anyone, to buy one for the clinic so I can have this on site. I have a weird Christmas list. But swimming is huge. Swimming's huge. Do you know about rebounders? They're like
tell us.
The little trampolines.
Yeah.
They're ones that everybody like in the 70s and 80s had one at home. And I used to think my parents were lame because they bought us the smallest trampoline in the world. But it's designed for circulation.
Right.
And so if you go on a rebounder and you just do like little tiny movements through the rebounder, it pumps lymph and circulation through your legs so much. You go on that for 10, 15 minutes. It's like going for an hour walk. It's amazing for circulation.
Amazing.
So yeah, there's dry brushing, and there's so many YouTube videos about how to do dry brushing, and it works really well for lymphatic stimulating movement. Obviously the thing that I see the best result is receiving lymph drainage therapy, but that's, obviously why I do what I do. So, and compression garments, and there's compression pumps, and, it's come such a long way from where we used to not understand nor respect what the lymphatic system, what happens when it gets mad. And, that's the big condition that, people are always worried about is if you type in lymphedema into a Google search or any kind of search engine, you will see some of the worst pictures because they're going to show you the most extreme cases. But it's been around for centuries. People have had broken lymphatic systems or damage, and they just never left home, or they wore a skirt all the time, or, it was just big-legged Nelly. I don't know. It's just, it wasn't understood. And so it's only been in the last, 100 years, really, where we look at when the lymphatic system gets damaged, that's lymphedema. So we work with so many cancer patients who've had lymph nodes removed and who've had significant trauma that, their lymphatic system can't move even a regular amount of fluid. They can't move that 1.5 to 3 liters, and it's overwhelmed. And so, we are the only private lymphedema clinic in the city as well, where, people don't have to wait to get into the government-run facilities, because right now, unfortunately, here in Calgary, we're looking at 22 months to get into those centers. And so for us,
and are they doing the same kind of work that you're doing?
They do. They don't do the hands-on therapy, though. And so for lymphedema care, they'll do compression wrapping, they'll do exercise, they'll give them skincare stuff, but they're not going to do as much of the hands-on. And that's what we have sort of as a feather in our cap that I love, is that we can allocate that time and do the hands-on therapy, which, I feel like without it, you're just, you're trying to push water up a hill and not having any recourse for when it tries to come back down, right? So it's a package thing. You need to look at all the components to really make a good result. So yeah.
So our listeners and our viewers can find you at www.lymphbalance.com.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll take you to the Lymph Balance Center and see all of the amazing. You have quite a few therapists working.
I do. I have an awesome team, and most of them either I had the joy of teaching them, or they've taken training somewhere else, and we work as a team because there's no way I could see all the lymph clients myself. This is why I had to create the clinic. There was no other options. Mm-hmm. And so
you've been in this for quite some time, right?
I have. Well,
this.
You wanted to bring up this whole 2005 thing. Like, that's actually when I got into lymph. That's when I started. Okay. And it's 16 years now doing lymph. Mm-hmm. And I still take as many courses as I can from different people about it, because there's so many things that are still being discovered about it, and lymphatics in the brain. And I do lots of lymphatic eyeball work, which who would have told me 15 years ago I'd be hanging out with people's eyeballs, helping with swelling.
Amazing.
I don't think I would have believed them, to be honest, but no, I love it. And so
I've had sometimes people, like usually Chinese people that know about acupuncture, and they'll ask for like needles in the eyes. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. You know, I get like, not many people will let me needle the eyeballs. Well, it's not the eyeball, right? Obviously,
but still,
but in the space there. But it's like so good for vision and swelling, and you know, the urinary bladder line starts inner canthus and then up around whole back of the body. And that's so then in Chinese medicine, I don't know if you've researched or know much about this, because lymphatic system isn't called that. Like, you know, we also don't have a pancreas, you know, like pancreas is real. I'm not quoting pancreas.
No, I know what you mean.
We don't have something, you know, it's like it's kind of lumped in together in like another system. But lymphatic, we have this channel or this organ that is called the sanjiao or triple warmer. So it's not really an organ, but this is what I relate to as the irrigation system of the body. Like it regulates the upper, you know, upper, middle, and lower spaces of our body, torso. And it makes sure everything gets its proper nutrition and circulation, and everything about acupuncture and Chinese medicine is about circulation as well. It's pretty much like if you have no
stagnant,
like you're good, right?
Yeah.
But the minute something gets blocked or stuck or has an alarm bells, right? Like it's signaling to your body, hey, I need some attention here. Yeah. You know, it's not always
the lymphatics is the same. Like, you know, it's if it's not moving, that tissue becomes unhealthy. When we see stagnant fluid, you know, in the legs, in the organs, etc. And, you know, even to the same point is emotions get stuck in that fluid. And we see a lot of like huge emotional trauma and so on. And you have this swelling and you start releasing the swelling and the person, it's like, I don't know why I'm processing this from 30 years ago, but I fell off a horse. And you're like, yeah, it's all connected, and stagnation's not good for anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, really not. Like, I just always think of like a stagnant pond, like that's where mosquitoes live, and who really wants to like enter that?
Yeah. I always explain it like a slough. I'm like, if you grew up near a farm, you're going to understand the slough term, but it's like this pond that nothing fresh comes in and nothing leaves, and pond scum and bacteria and the gross stuff grows. And lymphatic fluid, when it's stagnant, sometimes it'll even come out through the skin because it's just trying to get out. And so you get these like little sores that become blisters and it leaks out. And I've smelt a lot of bodily fluids in my time, and lymph, that is up there. That is nauseating. I have to breathe in through my mouth a lot through working with somebody with that. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
So by smell alone, I wouldn't encourage it.
Yeah. It is nauseating. That's definitely, I remember seeing in China, we were doing like, well, I was just observing, but these small incisions for like little pustules like that, right? That just have lymph, and then just like to drain the lymph. And yeah.
I know. And there's a lot of people who think that if they have that kind of swelling, that they should just go and have it aspirated, you know, with a needle. And there's times where that can help. But if the system itself is broken, even if you remove the fluid via a needle, it's going to come back. The system itself isn't functioning.
So it's taking care of the system. Okay, so also then with the sanjiao and the triple warmer, there's a Japanese style acupuncture called around Hara diagnosis, and Hara means the abdomen. So everything is diagnosed with the abdomen and worked. And then you pick your points and you're checking, you know, to see if that opens up the pathway or not. You know, it's so cool to read the body in like a different way.
But it makes sense. It totally makes sense.
But it's such a superficial modality. You know, it's like, how is this doing anything for me? Well,
and when we get into the abdomen, we definitely do go deeper, because of course there's so many lymph nodes and your cisterna chyli and all these structures that are very lymphatic are deeper in the abdomen. So that's probably the one big area that we go deeper. But that was one of the things I loved. I was very lucky to train with Dr. Bruno Chickley, and he's a medical doctor from France, and he, you know, has trained in acupuncture and Eastern medicine, and he's trained in shiatsu, and he's trained in, you know, actually, I don't know if it's shiatsu. Hold on. Anyways, he's trained in so many things that, you know, there's times where he's able to see those connections too. And he was one of the only, you know, lymphatic specialists that really said, you know, if we listen and pay attention and feel the lymph, not just assume that it's going to do what a textbook tells us it's going to do, but let's feel it. Let's feel the quality of it. Let's look for the rhythm of it, because it has its own pulse, and it's not the blood, and it's not respiration, and it's not, you know, craniosacral rhythm. It is its own rhythm. And if we pay attention to that and work with it, we're going to have a much stronger and better result than if we just go, you know what? Anybody who has swelling in the wrist, the fluid has to go here, here, and here. There's no protocol. And it's actually what I love is because there are things you can feel. You can feel when the lymph has a lot of like different things in it. Like working on somebody who's just started a course of antibiotics, their lymph feels really different versus somebody who just had chemotherapy versus somebody who is dehydrated. Their lymph feels different.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's so interesting. Like,
I love it.
I know, I totally love it. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, don't go for it.
You know, with Chinese medicine diagnosis, we check the pulse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the pulse and the tongue, and that's usually, and the, you know, the abdomen, you come to some diagnosis of what's going on with the body. But they train, this is traditionally, I can't say I personally have ever done it really to train, but just gliding your hands over the river, like, you know, hanging out by the river and just feeling the superficialness of the river. And that's how you learn then the different qualities of someone's pulse. So, you know, when we feel the pulse, it's like, is it slippery? Is it choppy? Is it wiry? Is it weak? Is it, you know, strong? Like what's, you know, and it's like, what does that feel like? You know, but that is so cool about the lymphatic flow, because of course it has its own rhythm.
Every time we've had an acupuncturist take a course, because I now teach for the Chickley Health Institute and I teach lymph drainage.
Right.
And every time we have an acupuncturist, I feel like they have a different approach to feeling it. And they do feel those qualities because they have that skill, right? And I find massage therapists are amazing lymphatic therapists because, you know, we're trained to feel for the fiber direction. We're trained to feel for the slight variance in temperature differences. We're looking for minor scar tissues, fiber directions, all these things. And so if you can take that skill and say, I can feel things even lighter than that, you know, it takes a little bit, but that's why I feel like massage therapists are like awesome lymph therapists. That's why like almost all of my lymph therapists here are massage therapists. But acupuncturists, I feel, have the same capabilities even more because of the pulsing and the pulse.
But I feel my skills as an acupuncturist were really groomed nicely by massage therapy, because like I remember the first couple days or something, we did this test with a phone book, the archaic phone book that like, doesn't exist.
Phone book.
Yeah, it's like, okay, strand of hair in the phone book, and how many pages of the phone book can you still feel it?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think I started out with like a couple, you know, and then it just grew, and now palpation is huge. And I mean, so much of it, because when you're scanning the body, like my hands do the full scan, right? There's like all the sensory perceptors. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, we underestimate our skills so much. And, you know, my kids think, you know, sometimes it's like a superhero skill. They're like, oh, you're like, you know, who was it? It's like Spider-Man. You have spidey senses. And I'm like, but we all can. You just have to give it that time. And you have to give yourself the allocation that you can. right? The only reason that we don't think we can is because we've been told we can't. You can't palpate something that light. Yes, you can.
Right.
Right? I don't,
Love
people,
that.
and I'm a part of like so many lymph groups and lymphedema groups and stuff like that in the States. And there was a group with with lymphedema therapists. And they're like, has anybody ever treated through clothes? And I wrote back, I'm like, yeah, all the time. And then 4 of the people go, no, that's impossible. You can't do lymphatic work or feel lymph. Well, they said you can't feel lymph at all. And that's because there's a different school of training. And of course, I don't really engage a lot with that because I'm like, you can give your own restrictions to yourself if that's what you want to do. But they said, no, you have to work skin on skin. And I said, well, when I was first training, yeah, because that's how I felt the lymph and that's how I got the stretch. But I have clients who don't feel comfortable getting undressed. I have a client who can't take off their pants by themselves. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I can still get great results working through pants, getting through jeans. Now, if you're wearing a parka, it's a little different. Yeah. But I can still feel the lymph through a parka. You just have to give yourself that time and feel for it and listen. And shut up all the things. Yeah. You know? And shut up all those parts of your brain that are telling you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so,
no, you're engaging in a conversation with the lymphatic system. You know, it's like, it will speak to you, right?
Yeah, and we have great conversations. And you know what? If my kids can feel lymph, which they can, anybody can, you know? And they've never been told that they can't, right? So they can feel it and they're like, Mom, the rhythm's like this. I'm like, you're exactly right. And they're like, the lymph is going this direction. I'm like, you're hired. Like, absolutely.
How old are they?
The twins just turned 9 and my oldest is going to be 12.
Okay.
So, but the twins are really into it.
Yeah,
they're really into it. So it's good to see. I'm like, well, legacy. Like, there we go.
They are so sweet.
Yeah. So hopefully, you know, but again, it's just, I think the limitations we put on ourselves, and it's, like I said, it's such a superficial, most people just go too hard. Like, it's literally between your 2 layers of skin. Like, you know, your epidermis, which is that superficial layers. And there's lots of layers there. They're just super, super thin. But that's like, you know, if you scratch yourself, that's why you don't bleed, is because you have that superficial epidermis, right? But if you go deep enough, like a paper cut, and you get that little bit of blood, that is exactly where your lymphatics sit. 70%. It's mind-boggling. So in that little space, that's where your lymph hangs out. So there's a reason why it doesn't feel like massage, because I'd be going way too deep. Right? So for me to just place my hands and just feel that little bit, I just need to be sticky. That's all it is. It's never painful.
Yeah, more superficial than the muscles.
Yeah. So that's why it doesn't hurt. I work with hospice patients. It helps so much with hospice. It helps so much with babies, with digestion, with all those things. So
oh yes. Okay, this is one thing I wanted to mention when you were talking about the swimming pool and the being in compression, because in China I saw they have these centers where you can bring your baby to, like in a pool, and then they put a little floaty donut around their neck, and then the baby just hangs out. And do you think that's like to circulate? I mean, there's so many like stretching out. It's just so nice for.
But even just consistent pressure like that, your nervous system, everything. Like, oh, what a gift!
I know.
Love it. I wish I could just take my kids and drop them at a pool and just
with like floaties around their necks, like just float. Yeah,
go float. Yeah.
Well, I hope that that one of those machines gets to your center.
Yeah, I know. My team is like, when are we getting our own swimming pool? And I'm like, well, we need a little bit more time in the business to do that. But it's on the dream board. You know, it's up there.
Yes.
So
well, you could talk with the people that support you and
yeah. And the clients that we see are it's such a great thing to be able to offer. And I'm really hoping I can help create some other spaces in other big cities, because it's just such a need. So
yeah. Amazing. This is so wonderful to have you share with us all the wonderful things that you do.
I'm so glad that we could make it work.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope everyone has a safe stampede for those in Calgary.
Yeah, watch out for the sunburns, people.
Sunburns, the excessive drinking, all of that stuff.
The cowboy boots, it'll do you.
Cowboy boots. Yeah. Those are generally pretty comfy, though. You don't think? Yeah.
It depends. If you're not used to wearing them, good luck.
Okay,
So.
Robin, thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks to all our listeners for tuning in again. We'll have another great show for you next Friday. So enjoy your weekend. And we'll leave you with a question of what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you for the rest of your life?
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.